The whisper beneath the roots. The morning sun crept lazily over the eastern hills, draping the small village of Enlovu in golden light. Thatched rooftops glistened with dew, and the cries of distant guinea fowls echoed through the baobab groves. It was a morning like any other, except today, Zenzi turned 17. She sat outside her grandmother's mud hut, braiding her hair with nimble fingers, while her little brother Jabari chased a chicken around the dusty yard. Her grandmother, Gogo Nomusa, sat on a reed mat, grinding herbs in a calabash bowl, her gray eyes sharp despite her age. "Today, you must stay away from the old tree," Gogo warned suddenly, without even looking up. Zenzi paused. "Why, Gogo? The ancestors don't want anyone near it. Not today. But it's just a tree." "No, child," Gogo cut her off. "That baobab holds secrets older than this village. It remembers pain. It remembers blood." Zenzi felt a chill, despite the rising heat. Every child in Enlovu had grown up hearing tales of the baobab wa Malalo, the tree of fire. They said centuries ago, a woman accused of witchcraft had been bound to that tree and burned alive. Since then, the tree had never borne fruit, its bark was scarred black, and crows never perched on it. But Zenzi had always believed it was just a legend. After chores, when her grandmother dozed off under the awning, Zenzi's curiosity pulled at her like a thread. She tiptoed past the goats, climbed over the low thorn fence, and followed the narrow path eastward, past the maize fields, toward the forbidden grove. The deeper she went, the quieter the world became. Even the birds seemed to hush. When she finally stood before the tree, she froze. It was massive. The baobab's trunk was thick as a hut, its roots twisted like ancient serpents. Charred scars ran along its bark, and its branches stretched like clawed fingers into the sky. But what truly stopped her heart was the whisper. She couldn't quite hear it, not with her ears, but in her mind, a woman's voice wept. Not in words, but in pain. Trembling, Zenzi reached out and laid her palm on the bark. And the world exploded. A flash of fire. Screams. Chains. Smoke. Zenzi fell backward, clutching her head. She saw visions, brief, broken fragments. A woman tied to the tree. A child screaming. A shadowy figure with a hyena's laugh. Then silence. When she opened her eyes, the sun had moved. Hours had passed. And in her palm, a black spiral mark now glowed faintly. She ran. Back through the fields. Back past the goats. Her heart thundered in her chest as she burst into Gogo's yard. The old woman saw the mark and went pale. "Oh no," Gogo whispered. "You've woken her. The curse of the baobab tree." Chapter 1 continued. The whisper beneath the roots. Gogo Nomusa didn't waste time. She snatched Zenzi's hand, inspected the spiral mark with trembling fingers, then dragged her into the hut, bolting the wooden door behind them. The air inside was heavy with the scent of dried herbs, smoke, and old bones. "Sit," Gogo ordered. Zenzi obeyed, heart racing. The old woman pulled a leather pouch from beneath her woven mat, poured out a handful of red powder, and circled her granddaughter while murmuring a prayer in the old tongue. Zenzi watched, stunned. "Gogo, what's happening to me?" "You touched her pain," Gogo said, her voice gravelly. "Now her spirit knows you. She has tasted your blood." "My blood." Zenzi looked at her palm. The mark had begun to burn, like embers beneath her skin. "Yes. The mark is not just a sign, it's a key. You've opened a door that's been shut for centuries." "Who is she, Gogo?" Zenzi whispered. She was called Nomandla, a powerful Sangoma, a seer, burned alive by jealous elders who feared her truth. But she did not die. Not all of her. Her spirit was bound to the baobab, sealed in pain, waiting. Waiting for what? For someone who could set her free. Zenzi's eyes widened. You mean, me? Gogo looked away. I had hoped not. But the mark never lies. The ancestors must have chosen you. Suddenly, a gust of wind slammed against the hut walls. The flames in the clay lanterns danced violently. Gogo stood and pressed her hand to the door. She's coming. Who? Nomandla. In spirit. Then the lanterns went out. The darkness was complete. Zenzi heard a low moan, like wind through a hollow tree. Then, a whisper. A voice both ancient and broken. Free me. Zenzi's body went rigid. Images filled her mind again, clearer this time. Nomandla on her knees, arms bound, tears streaked down her soot-covered face. Villagers watched in silence, afraid to speak. And then Zenzi became her. She felt the heat of the flames. Smelled the smoke. Heard her own screams. And just before everything went black, she whispered a curse through bloodied lips. One day, one of your own blood, will unbind me. Zenzi gasped and pulled back into her own body. She was on the floor, sweating, the mark on her hand glowing like a coal. Gogo knelt beside her. You saw it, didn't you? Zenzi nodded. She's in pain. She wants revenge. Gogo looked grim. She will not rest until those who wronged her are punished. But they are long dead. Zenzi swallowed. Then what will she do? She will turn her rage on us. That night, strange things began to happen in Enlovu. The cattle refused to return to their pens, instead circling the village endlessly. The sky turned red at sunset, and the air smelled of burning wood. Drums echoed from the forest, though no one played them. Worse still, the village children began dreaming of the woman in the fire. By dawn, 2 huts were found burned to the ground. One belonged to the elder whose great-grandfather had sentenced Nomandla. People whispered. Eyes turned toward Zenzi. And in the shadows of the baobab grove, something watched. The whisper beneath the roots. As the sun began to set the following day, the village of Enlovu was cloaked in an unsettling stillness. The usual hum of activity, women weaving baskets, children playing in the dirt, men repairing fences, had faded. People moved with a sense of unease, glancing over their shoulders as if they feared something was watching them. Zenzi walked through the village, her eyes darting from face to face, each person seemingly preoccupied with their own fears. She could feel the weight of the mark on her hand, the way it seemed to burn with every step. She felt as though she were walking on the edge of something ancient, something dangerous, that could pull her under at any moment. Her grandmother had locked herself inside the hut, refusing to speak more about the curse that had been set upon her, but Zenzi knew that it was only a matter of time before something worse happened. It was clear that the spirit of Nomandla was not just seeking freedom, it was seeking justice, and it had chosen Zenzi as the instrument of that revenge. Zenzi. A voice called from behind her. It was Jabari, her younger brother, breathless from running. Gogo wants you back at the hut, now. Zenzi nodded without saying anything, feeling a knot form in her stomach. She knew that Gogo wouldn't call her unless something had changed. They reached the hut, and Zenzi pushed open the door. Her grandmother was sitting on the floor, the same leather pouch resting beside her. Her face was pale, and her hands shook as they gripped the edge of a worn cloth. Zenzi could see that her grandmother was afraid. Not of the curse, but of something deeper. Something far more dangerous. Gogo. Zenzi asked quietly, sitting beside her. Gogo didn't speak at first. She stared at the floor, as if lost in thought. Then, slowly, she raised her eyes to Zenzi, and the weight of her gaze nearly made Zenzi's breath catch. The ancestors were wrong, Gogo said, her voice cracking. Nomandla is not just seeking freedom. She wants to consume everything. Zenzi's heart skipped a beat. What do you mean? Gogo's lips trembled, and for a moment, it seemed as though she might break down. The curse is not only about revenge, it's about replacement. Nomandla wants a body. She wants to live again. Zenzi's blood ran cold. But, why me? Why did she choose me? Gogo sighed deeply. Because you carry the bloodline of the very people who condemned her. You are tied to that history, Zenzi. The mark on your hand, the whispers in the night, it's all part of her plan. She believes that if she can take over your body, she will live again, in flesh and bone. Zenzi swallowed hard, her throat dry. She didn't know what to say, or even if she could speak at all. The idea that Nomandla, someone who had been dead for centuries, could possess her was unimaginable. Yet the burning on her hand was real. The visions had felt real. The whispers of pain, of anguish, they were real. Can we stop her? Zenzi asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Gogo's eyes softened. I don't know. But we must try. There are ways, ancient ways, that may help. But you must be willing to fight for your soul. Zenzi didn't hesitate. I will do whatever it takes. I won't let her take me. The old woman nodded. Good. We will need the help of the elders. But they will be hard to convince. They will not believe us, not until it's too late. Zenzi felt a surge of determination flood her chest. She could feel the curse growing stronger every day, and she knew that if she didn't act soon, it would overtake her completely. That night, Gogo took Zenzi to the village's sacred grove, a quiet patch of forest where the elders gathered to pray and perform rituals. It was a place where only the most respected of the villagers were allowed, and Zenzi had never been there before. She could feel the weight of the ancient trees pressing down on her, as if they were watching, listening. The elders were already there, sitting in a circle around a fire. Their faces were grave, their eyes heavy with the knowledge of something terrible on the horizon. When they saw Zenzi and Gogo approach, they fell silent. What brings you here, Nomusa? One of the elders asked, his voice low and steady. I bring my granddaughter, Gogo said, her voice strong despite the fear that lingered in her eyes. And I bring news that will concern us all. The eldest of the elders, Makulu Tulani, leaned forward, his eyes narrowing. What news, Nomusa? Gogo took a deep breath, then spoke, her words sharp and clear. The curse of Nomandla has awakened. My granddaughter has been marked. And if we do not act quickly, we will all suffer. A murmur rippled through the elders. Zenzi could feel their gaze fall upon her like a heavy weight. It was then that she realized, Gogo had not brought her here for support. She had brought her here for protection. The elders were already afraid, and Zenzi could see that fear reflected in their eyes. Do you know what this means? Makulu Tulani asked. Do you understand the consequences of what you've unleashed, Zenzi? Zenzi nodded slowly. I understand, but I will not let her take me. The elder studied her for a long moment before speaking again. There is only one way to stop her, child. And it will not be easy. You must face Nomandla where her spirit was bound, to the baobab tree. There, you must sever the link between her soul and the physical world. Zenzi swallowed hard. How? By making a sacrifice, the elder said. A sacrifice of blood. Your blood. Zenzi's heart sank. My blood. But, won't that make it worse? No, the elder replied, his voice firm. It will sever her hold on you, and free you from the curse. But you must be strong. The spirit will try to consume you, to twist your soul. You must not let her. Zenzi stood there in stunned silence, her mind racing. Was this the only way? Could she truly sacrifice part of herself to stop Nomandla? She glanced at her grandmother, who nodded, her face etched with sorrow. Zenzi knew that Gogo had once hoped there would be another way, but now there was no choice. The village was at stake. Her life was at stake. And if she didn't act, everything she knew would be consumed by the curse. "I'll do it," Zenzi said, her voice steady despite the fear curling in her chest. "I'll face her. I'll make the sacrifice." Makulu Tulani gave a single nod. "Then prepare yourself, Zenzi. The baobab is waiting." The Curse of the Baobab Tree. Chapter 2. The Baobab's Shadow. Zenzi stood at the edge of the sacred grove, the baobab tree looming in the distance like a dark sentinel. Its twisted branches seemed to reach out to the heavens, casting long, jagged shadows across the earth. The air around her was thick with the scent of damp earth, and a chill wind had picked up, rustling the leaves in a language she couldn't understand. Gogo had led her here before the first light of dawn, just as the elders had instructed. There was no turning back now. This was the moment when she would confront the spirit that had marked her, the spirit that had claimed her as its vessel for revenge. And it wasn't just her life at stake. The curse threatened everyone in the village, the entire community. Zenzi's heart beat loudly in her chest as she walked toward the baobab. The ground beneath her feet seemed to hum with energy, and she could feel the earth trembling, as if it, too, was aware of the ancient power that resided here. She could hear the whispers in the wind, soft but growing. Louder as she drew closer. She could feel the spirit of Nomandla, just beyond the edge of her senses, waiting. "Zenzi," Gogo's voice cut through the tension. Zenzi turned to see her grandmother standing a few paces behind, her face drawn in concern. "I'm ready," Zenzi said, though her voice trembled slightly. She wasn't sure if she was ready, but there was no other choice. The elders had told her that there would be no other way to stop the spirit from consuming her. This was the only way to sever the bond between Nomandla and the world of the living. Gogo nodded, but her eyes were filled with sorrow. "The baobab has seen much death, child. Much suffering. Be careful. Nomandla is not a spirit that will rest easily." Zenzi took a deep breath, her palms sweaty, but her resolve firm. She had to do this. For herself. For the village. For her family. She turned back to the massive tree, its twisted roots snaking through the ground like veins, its trunk as wide as a house. The whispers grew louder, more distinct now, and Zenzi could make out the words. "Free me." She stepped forward, her feet sinking into the soft earth with each step. The baobab seemed to pulse, its energy reverberating through her very bones. She could feel the weight of the centuries pressing down on her, the history of the spirit that had been trapped here. Nomandla's rage and pain had been bound to this tree for generations, and now it was reaching out to claim her as its next victim. With each step, Zenzi's fear grew, but so did her determination. She couldn't let herself falter. She couldn't let Nomandla win. When she reached the base of the baobab, she felt a sudden, sharp pull in her chest. A force she couldn't explain tugged at her very soul, as if the tree itself was trying to drag her into its ancient depths. "Free me, child. Free me." The voice was closer now, its tone full of desperation. Zenzi's heart raced, and she fought against the compulsion to fall to her knees. She had to stay strong. She had to do what the elders had instructed. With trembling hands, she reached into the pouch at her side and pulled out the knife that had been blessed by the elders. Its blade gleamed in the pale light, sharp and ready. She closed her eyes and whispered a prayer, one taught to her by her grandmother when she was a child. Ancestors, guide me. Protect me. Let me sever the bond, let me destroy the curse. With that, she made a single cut on her palm. The blood dripped slowly from the wound, pooling on the ground at her feet. The moment the blood touched the earth, the baobab shuddered, and the whispers became a roar. No! Nomandla's voice echoed through the grove, full of fury and pain. You cannot deny me. You are mine. Zenzi staggered back, clutching her bleeding hand. The world seemed to tilt as the ground beneath her feet began to tremble violently. The wind whipped around her, carrying with it the scent of burning flesh, the same scent she had smelled in her visions. The baobab's roots began to stir, writhing like serpents. From the depths of the earth, something began to rise, something dark, something powerful. Zenzi could feel the air thickening, pressing down on her chest, making it harder to breathe. You cannot escape me, Zenzi, Nomandla's voice echoed, now unmistakably coming from within the tree itself. Your blood is mine. Your soul is mine. Zenzi fought to stay standing. She could feel the weight of the spirit bearing down on her, could feel it clawing at her very soul, trying to drag her into its grasp. She had never felt anything so suffocating, so all-consuming. But she couldn't give up. Not now. With her free hand, she reached into the pouch once more and pulled out the herbs that Gogo had given her. She threw them into the air, and a cloud of smoke filled the grove, swirling around her like a veil. For a moment, everything went still. The whispers stopped. The roots ceased their movement. The air was thick with silence. And then, the scream. Nomandla's scream was like the cry of 1,000 souls, torn and tortured. Zenzi clutched her ears, falling to her knees as the sound reverberated through her skull. It was as though the spirit was unraveling, its form dissolving into pure pain and fury. No! The spirit howled. You cannot defeat me. I will return. I will return. Zenzi gritted her teeth, forcing herself to stand once more. The smoke swirled around her, and in the haze, she could see the form of Nomandla emerging, her face twisted in rage, her eyes burning with ancient hatred. But Zenzi would not falter. She focused on the knife, the blood, the bond between her and the spirit. She had to sever it. She had to destroy the connection completely. With every ounce of strength, Zenzi raised the knife high above her head, and with a cry, she drove it deep into the base of the baobab, where the roots had been stirring. The ground trembled as if the earth itself was shaking in pain, but Zenzi held her ground. The moment the knife pierced the roots, the entire forest seemed to shudder, and the spirit's scream reached a deafening pitch before suddenly stopping, as if a dam had burst. The air cleared, and Zenzi collapsed to the ground, exhausted, her blood still dripping onto the earth. The pain in her chest slowly subsided, and for the first time in what felt like ages, the grove was silent. The baobab tree stood still, its massive branches now unmoving, its roots no longer twisting. And somewhere, deep within the earth, the spirit of Nomandla had been silenced. Zenzi lay there for a moment, breathing heavily, her heart racing. She had done it. She had freed herself. She had freed the village. But as she looked up, she realized that the battle had only just begun. The curse had been lifted, but at what cost? Zenzi's victory over Nomandla comes at a great cost, and the true ramifications of her actions are only just beginning to unfold. The aftermath of silence. The forest was eerily quiet. The wind that had once howled in fury, carrying the cries of Nomandla, had now died down, leaving an oppressive stillness behind. Zenzi lay on the ground, her chest heaving as she fought to catch her breath. Her blood soaked the earth beneath her, but but she didn't care. The weight of the curse that had hung over her was gone, and with it, the spirit of Nomandla had been sealed. But the silence that followed wasn't comforting. It felt wrong, unnatural. The world seemed to hold its breath, waiting for something. And Zenzi felt it too, the deep ache in her bones, the sense that something was missing, that she had sacrificed more than she had intended. Gogo was at her side almost immediately, her hands gentle as they hovered over Zenzi's wounds, her eyes filled with concern. "Zenzi, child," Gogo whispered, her voice trembling slightly. "What have you done?" Zenzi looked up at her grandmother, her vision blurry from the exertion, but there was no doubt in her heart. "I did what had to be done, Gogo. The curse, it's gone." But Gogo didn't seem relieved. Instead, her face tightened, and her eyes filled with sorrow. She took Zenzi's hand and pulled it away from the gash in her palm. "The curse is gone, yes," she said softly, "but at what cost?" Zenzi blinked, her mind foggy. "What do you mean?" Gogo looked down at the baobab tree, her eyes narrowed as she spoke with a gravity that Zenzi had never heard before. "Nomandla may be gone, but the spirit of vengeance has not disappeared. The very act of severing the bond has disrupted something far older than you realize." Zenzi furrowed her brow in confusion. "But the baobab, it's silent now. The curse is lifted." "The baobab tree is silent," Gogo agreed, her voice heavy with warning. "But the power that Nomandla wielded is ancient. It wasn't just bound to the tree, it was part of the earth itself. By severing that bond, you've opened a door, Zenzi. A door that should never have been opened." Zenzi's stomach twisted with dread. "What do you mean? What have I done?" Gogo's eyes met hers, dark with the weight of something unspoken. "When Nomandla's spirit was sealed, the earth shifted. The curse is no longer in one form. It is now free to roam, to take root in other places. And it will seek vengeance, not just on you, but on everyone who dared to challenge it." Zenzi's mind raced, but before she could speak, the ground beneath them trembled again, faintly at first, like a distant rumble of thunder. Gogo's face went pale. "The door is opening wider," she muttered. Zenzi slowly pushed herself up, still feeling the pull of exhaustion in her limbs. "What do we do, Gogo? How do we stop this?" Gogo's gaze hardened, her lips set in a firm line. "We can't stop it alone. But there are those who may know how to undo what you've done, those who can seal the door again." Zenzi's heart sank. She knew what Gogo was implying. "The elders." Gogo nodded. "Yes, but they will not be easy to find. We must go to the mountains, to the temple of the old gods. There, the elders can perform a ritual to bind the curse for good. But we must be quick, Zenzi. The longer we wait, the harder it will be to contain." Zenzi's head swam with the realization of what she had unleashed. She had thought that by confronting Nomandla, by ending the curse, she would be freeing herself and her village. But now she understood that she had only shifted the danger. The very act of confronting the spirit had released something far darker, something far older. The wind began to stir again, but this time, it carried a different scent. Not the damp, earthy smell of the forest, but the acrid stench of burning flesh. Zenzi's heart skipped a beat. She turned to Gogo, her voice urgent. "What's happening? Why does it smell like that?" Gogo's eyes widened with realization. "The curse is spreading," she whispered. "It's already begun to take hold of the land." Before Zenzi could respond, the sound of footsteps, heavy and deliberate, broke the silence. A figure emerged from the shadows, silhouetted against the dim light of the forest. Zenzi's breath caught in her throat as she saw the figure's face. It was a man, tall and broad-shouldered, dressed in dark clothing that seemed to blend into the shadows. His eyes glowed with an unnatural light, and his expression was one of unyielding determination. But what struck Zenzi most was the faint outline of a baobab tree that seemed to pulse beneath his skin, as if the spirit of Nomandla had found a new vessel. Zenzi, the man's voice was low, deep, and full of power. You have disturbed the balance of the earth. Zenzi's heart skipped a beat. Who are you? The man smiled, a cruel twist of his lips. I am the one who will undo what you have done. I am the one who will ensure that the curse is not forgotten. Gogo stepped in front of Zenzi, her hands raised in a protective gesture. No, you are mistaken, Gogo said firmly. The curse is no longer bound to the baobab. It has been severed. The man's eyes flashed with anger. You have no idea what you've unleashed. Nomandla's spirit may be gone, but the power she commanded is far from finished. Zenzi took a step forward, her fear turning into resolve. Then we will stop you, she said, her voice steady despite the fear that gripped her. We will stop whatever it is you are trying to do. The man laughed, a cold, mocking sound that echoed through the grove. You can't stop me, child. The curse is mine to command now. And soon, it will spread beyond this forest. It will spread to every village, every kingdom. And you will be the one to bear the responsibility. Before Zenzi could respond, the man turned, disappearing into the shadows of the forest. The last thing Zenzi saw before he vanished was the faint outline of the baobab tree that seemed to pulse with power beneath his skin. Gogo turned to Zenzi, her expression grim. It has begun, she said softly. The curse is no longer bound to one place. It is spreading, and we must stop it before it's too late. Zenzi nodded, feeling the weight of her actions pressing down on her once more. She had thought the battle was over. But the real fight was just beginning.